Have you ever wondered what it would be like to live through an era of just massive, world-altering change? Not just one big event, but a whole century of relentless transformation? Well, that's the journey we're about to take.
You know, the 19th century was like a pressure cooker. Old empires were crumbling, brand new nations were being born, and the very fabric of daily life was being torn apart and rewoven by technology and incredible new ideas. It basically laid the foundation for the world we are living in right now.
At the heart of this whole century's story, there are really two powerful parallel forces. On one hand, you've got a revolution of political ideas, kind of symbolized by figures like Napoleon, spreading the ideals of the French Revolution. And at the exact same time, you have this revolution of industrial technology, captured perfectly by the arrival of the steam locomotive, promising to remake the entire world in iron.
And when these two forces met, wow, they created a whole new kind of society. One just filled with incredible energy, but also deep, deep conflict. You had revolutionary passion literally erupting on city barricades, right alongside the grueling, relentless toil of these new factories and iron mills.
So that brings us to the big question we're going to explore. How did these two engines of change, one powered by political ideals, the other by industrial might, how did they smash into each other, merge, and ultimately forge the world that we recognize as modern?
Okay, let's dive into our first engine, the political revolution. This was the earthquake that really began with the French Revolution, and it sent shockwaves from Napoleon all the way to the birth of brand new nations.
I mean, just look at this timeline. The century kicks off with a bang, the French Revolution in 1789. After Napoleon is finally defeated, the old powers try to stuff the genie back in the bottle at the Congress of Vienna in 1815. But it was just too late. The ideas of liberty and nationhood exploded again in 1848, and by 1871, you see a powerful new nation, the German Empire, being declared. It was a century of nonstop political struggle.
And a guy like Napoleon Bonaparte was right at the center of this. He wasn't just a conqueror, he was an exporter of revolution. As his armies marched all across Europe, they brought with them new legal systems like the Code Civil that just swept away old feudal laws, and they toppled ancient monarchies that had been ruling for centuries.
But here's the flip side of the coin, and it's so important. Goya's masterpiece here shows the brutal reality of these revolutionary wars. Napoleon's invasion of Spain didn't just bring new laws, it sparked this fierce, bloody nationalist backlash. People weren't just fighting against a French army anymore. They were fighting for a Spanish nation. This was really the violent birth of modern nationalism.
And that desire for national unity and for liberty, it didn't fade away. It erupted with incredible force in 1848, the Spring of Nations. All across Europe, you had citizens, intellectuals, and workers rising up. Here, in Frankfurt's Paulskirche, delegates tried to create a unified, liberal Germany. Now, most of these revolutions were ultimately crushed, but the dream they represented, that would define the rest of the century.
All right, let's switch gears to our second engine. This one was transforming daily life just as dramatically, not with armies and constitutions, but with iron, with steam, and the relentless drive of the Industrial Revolution.
The pace of change was just staggering. It starts with the steam engine in the late 18th century, but by the mid-19th century, railways are crisscrossing entire continents, and then it just accelerates. Sound is recorded for the first time, the automobile is born, and by the end of the century, we literally have moving pictures.
You know, the railway was the ultimate symbol of this new industrial age. It wasn't just a new way to travel, it was a revolution in itself. It shrank time and space, it connected cities and markets in ways that were previously unimaginable, and it physically scarred the landscape with tunnels and bridges and tracks, basically announcing that a new era had arrived.
And get this, the revolution wasn't just about heavy industry. It fundamentally changed human perception. For the first time ever, a moment could be frozen with photography. A voice could travel across wires with the telephone. You could even see inside the human body with X-rays. The very way we experience the world was being reinvented.
And then, as the century drew to a close, a whole new force emerged: electricity. Power plants like this one began to spring up, promising to light up the night, power even more advanced machines, and propel the world straight into the 20th century.
So what happened when these two powerful engines, the political revolution of ideas and the technological revolution of industry, finally collided? This is the moment our modern world was truly forged.
On one hand, you have the just awe-inspiring power of industry, captured in this painting of an iron rolling mill. But on the other, you have the human cost. Industrialization created a massive new urban working class, the proletariat, who lived in incredibly harsh conditions, fueling the factories with their labor.
And this new social reality, this world of class division and exploitation, it gave birth to powerful new political theories. Thinkers like Karl Marx, whose Communist Manifesto was published right in that revolutionary year of 1848, analyzed this new world and argued that history was a story of class struggle, advocating for a radical, revolutionary change.
At the same exact time, you have these really shrewd political leaders who are starting to master the tools of the industrial age. A statesman like Prussia's Otto von Bismarck understood that railways could move troops faster than ever before, and that factories could produce deadlier weapons. He learned how to harness industrial power to achieve his political goal, a unified Germany.
And this right here is the ultimate fusion of those two engines. In 1871, in the Hall of Mirrors at Versailles, no less, the German Empire was proclaimed. The political idea of a unified nation-state, a dream from 1848, was finally realized, not by liberal parliamentarians, but through the industrial-era military power of Prussia, blood and iron, as Bismarck himself had called it.
But this new world was also torn by internal conflict. In the very same year, 1871, the city of Paris erupted in a radical socialist revolution known as the Paris Commune. Its brutal suppression, captured in these early photographs, showed the violent new tensions between the state and the proletariat, a terrifying glimpse of the conflicts that would dominate the next century.
So by the end of the century, these forces had created a world of immense complexity, opportunity, and deep anxiety. A world we can finally really call modern.
Art itself just fractured to reflect this new reality. I mean, look at this chart. The single dominant styles of the past give way to a dizzying explosion of isms. Realism, Impressionism, Symbolism, Post-Impressionism. Artists weren't trying to depict a single, stable reality anymore, because that's not what they were living in. They were depicting a fragmented, subjective, and rapidly changing modern experience.
So, what's the bottom line here? The world we inhabit today, defined by nation-states, industrial economies, class conflicts, and modernist culture, was born directly from the collision of these two incredible 19th century revolutions. Which leaves us with a final thought. The 19th century was defined by the collision of political and industrial revolutions. So, what are the twin engines of change in our time? What forces are colliding right now to shape the world of tomorrow?